Hi, I'm Frankie Santoro.
And I'm Laura Norwind.
And in this video, I'll be playing the role of the teacher.
And I will be playing the narrator throughout the whole lesson. So we are taking you through the process of understanding the introduction of the gradual release of responsibility model. The steps you should be noticing are naming the strategy, explaining it, justifying why it's important, and how it is used. Please also, you can refer to those focus questions to support your learning. Here we go.
I'm glad that you all gathered around me here today because I'm going to read you a very moving story called How Many Days to America? A Thanksgiving Story, written by Eve Bunting, one of my favorite writers. This is a story about a family that is forced to flee their home because soldiers are driving them out of their country. Many families around the world experience the tragedy of war and have to leave their homes and immigrate to other countries. I can't imagine how hard it would be just to pick up and leave my friends, possessions, and even some family members behind.
Frankie just did a great thing. He just stopped and activated background knowledge and piqued the students' interest.
The map I have here gives a general idea of where the story takes place, but this could happen anywhere. I'm wondering if any of you have had any similar experiences, had to leave their homeland, or have known someone who has. Turn to each other and talk.
The introduction does not only have to be the teacher speaking, students can be involved as well. Frankie also took an opportunity to activate some more background knowledge right there.
Look, nothing is more important than the reader's thinking during reading. Many of you have heard the term reading comprehension. Reading comprehension is about understanding what we read. It's really important to consider how we comprehend text. In order to comprehend, readers pay attention and think about the words and ideas as they read. They carry on an inner conversation with the text.
Frankie just did the first step. He named the strategy, inner conversation. This is the naming section of an introduction.
The inner conversation, it happens to me. I have a voice in my head that speaks to me as I read. It's a quiet, inner voice, not a speaking out loud voice. Have you ever noticed a voice in your head speaking to you while you read?
Again, this is the explain. Frankie explained what inner conversation was. He stated, I have an inner voice in my head that speaks to me as I read.
I can tell by the looks on your faces that some of you don't quite understand what I'm talking about. So the voice in my head says different things as I read. For instance, when I meet new information, I might hear something like, wow, I never knew that before. Or when I'm confused, I might hear, I don't get this part. Or when I reread and suddenly understand, I often hear, now I get it. As I read this story to you now, I'm going to share my inner conversation with you. I will read, stop for a moment, and think out loud about the voice in my head. I'll even jot some thoughts down on Post-its.
So this is the how step. Frankie just stated how he was going to use his inner voice, and what he was going to do was write some and jot some thoughts down on a sticky note.
Have you ever seen fresh animal tracks in the snow or on the beach? Active readers leave tracks of their thinking just like that. They jot down quick notes to hold and remember their thoughts.
Again, Frankie explains how the students will use their inner conversation.
These thinking tracks show us that the reader has been there even after the reading is over, in the same way that we can tell by the fresh tracks which critter has darted across the snow, even after it has disappeared into the forest. When we really pay attention to the inner conversation and leave tracks of our thinking, we understand and learn much more from our reading.
So this was the justify part. He justified why inner conversation is important and how it helps the reader.
We really get hooked on the book. Turn to each other and talk about the inner conversation. Have you ever heard a voice in your head while you read?
This leads to the next stage in the gradual release of responsibility model, which is model.